Okay, we are live on Skills Not Pills for another day of incredible interviews and inspiration for making that journey out of one paradigm that we've been given of, go to the doctor and cope with your diagnosis or your disease for the rest of your life, into a different kind of paradigm of transform. Listen to this disease or this condition and transform it and change it and bring it to another whole level of understanding, and where you actually, heal from it, or where it just isn't part of your life anymore. So today I'm really excited to have my good friend Wendy Nolin on the show. Welcome, Wendy. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning. Thanks so much, Carrie. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
And I'm really excited that you're going to share with us your story today, because I've been with you for part of this journey, and I know it's been a challenging journey for you.
Sure has.
Yeah, it's been a really challenging journey because you are an entrepreneur, so that means you work for yourself. And to be working for yourself and, providing your own support, your own money, your own everything, and be facing something as debilitating as Lyme disease at the same time is really kind of impressive, that you're standing here today having recovered fully from Lyme disease without antibiotics or other synthetic drugs. That's incredible.
Thank you. It's been, I've really learned how strong I am. I knew I was pretty tough, but boy, I have a whole new level of respect for myself after what I've been through. It's not been easy by any stretch of the imagination, as anybody who's watching or listening with Lyme disease can attest. So thank you for the opportunity to share my story.
Absolutely. I'm really delighted to. So let me just tell you guys a little bit about her journey, and then we'll hear more about it from her. But, in 2015, Wendy was hospitalized with complaints of chest constriction and what she described as the muscles in her limbs dissolving like pop rocks in your mouth. Ooh. And after multiple blood and urine tests, x-rays, MRIs, the culprit was dangerously low levels of potassium that caused her internal organs to start shutting down. A year and a half later, she finally figured out the cause. She had contracted Lyme disease from her boyfriend. And neither of them being fans of Western medicine, they sought out alternative treatments that only included natural, homeopathic, and Eastern medicine protocols. So 2 years later, they're both symptom-free, with their energy levels returning and their mental, physical, and emotional capabilities renewed. And this is your first time talking about this experience publicly.
Yes, that's correct. It was something that, for my own personal reasons, I opted to not talk about it. And one of the main reasons is because I understand that words have power. And when we speak, I have insert disease or insert autoimmune or whatever here, it gives it energy and it gives it power. And then we become identified with that label. And so I decided I'm not going to talk about it with people. I'm just going to say, I have an infection, which that's what Lyme disease is. It's a bacterial infection, and I'm being treated for it. And I just left it at that. But I chose to not use the word Lyme intentionally. And then I found that when I did use it very judiciously with a few select people, that their reaction was, oh, well, there's all kinds of people saying that they have Lyme disease because they just want a label. And I was like, look, dude, I did not ask for this, and I didn't go out looking to put a label on it. It just so happens that that's what I have. And so I chose to not use the word Lyme, also because so many people are uninformed. And they don't understand, and they subscribe to Western medicine, and that's where this mindset comes from, that, oh, people are just looking for a label. So I chose to avoid using that label and just share with people that I had an infection and that I was not using antibiotics to treat it.
Wow. Yeah, so that brings up a really good point about having a infection or something going on with you that impacts your life and your performance. Is that oftentimes, especially as an entrepreneur, people can be really judgmental,
right, and uninformed, and still making poor judgments.
Yeah, exactly. And really, what we need to overcome this is a lot of support. So tell us a little bit about your journey in recovery from this. I know you weren't able to really discuss it with a lot of people. So it's sort of
Yeah.
like this private thing.
Yep. So, you know, as you mentioned in the introduction, my boyfriend and I, not fans of Western medicine. And, you know, we knew that the primary treatment for Lyme disease, according to Western protocols, is antibiotics. And while antibiotics, you know, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, when they were first introduced to, you know, the human element, they were great because they were killing, you know, very deadly diseases that didn't need to exist. However, what we didn't have at the time was that knowledge and understanding of how bad antibiotics can be as well, right? Just like cancer treatment, you know, chemo and radiation kills off good parts of the body that we need as well. And there's been enough study and enough knowledge about antibiotics in the recent news to realize that antibiotics aren't a great option. So as we began to dig in, we were constantly looking for alternative treatments. And, you know, there was just, we've discovered that there's several cures, literally cures for cancer, as well as ways to kill the Lyme bacteria that do not harm the body, and are homeopathic or naturopathic treatments that are not as destructive, and they don't kill off as much of the good stuff in the body that you need. And one of those treatments, first we adopted what's called the Buhner protocol, which is herbs, antifungals, antibacterials, a lot of things to build up the immune system, because the bacteria, the Lyme-causing bacteria, is it just wears down the immune system, which is what a lot of disease does. So the purpose of the Buhner protocol was to build up the immune system to start attacking the Lyme disease naturally. Unfortunately, however, that necessitated taking handfuls and handfuls and handfuls of pills. You know, at one point my boyfriend said he was taking like 148 or 178, I can't remember the number, but well over 130 or 40 pills a day, which when you're eating handfuls of pills, it feels like that's all you eat is supplements.
Yeah, so her herbal pills, you mean? Like
yeah. So you're just taking herbal supplements, and sometimes some liquids and some tinctures. So, you know, and that just is exhausting. It's overwhelming. You're just constantly eating handfuls of supplements. Then as we continued to do more and more research, we discovered, I guess about 2.5 years ago, there's a woman who wrote an article. It's been highly publicized. And it's about this woman in California. She lived somewhere else, and she had Lyme disease for quite some time, and she was now in a wheelchair. She was so, her body was just so racked with bacteria from the Lyme. And she moved to California, and she had a personal caretaker because, she couldn't get around without some help. While she was in California and they were outside walking somewhere, and, her caretaker was pushing her wheelchair, and all of a sudden a swarm of bees descended upon them and just attacked her for no apparent reason. Well, the caretaker bolted and was like, I'm out of here. I can't do anything to help you, and left this woman basically for dead, and she was attacked by this swarm of bees. And she figured she was a goner. Like, her body cannot withstand this many bee stings. But amazingly enough, she woke up the next day after, basically what was considered a bee venom induced coma. And she realized that, okay, number one, I'm still alive. And number two, that somehow she felt better. And come to discover, as she started to learn more and do more research, there's a component, there's many different compounds in bee venom and snake venom and spider venom and, frog venom. And there's specifically in bees, there's a compound called melittin. And that melittin breaks the biofilm that surrounds the spirochete, the Lyme bacteria. So I'm getting into some technical.
Oh, no, I love this. This is great. I'm loving this. Keep going.
So the Lyme bacteria has what's called, so the bacteria is a spirochete, which means spiral. So it's a little spiral bacteria, and it encases itself in a biofilm. So it floats around in the body in a bubble. Well, that bubble keeps it safe as it travels throughout your body until it decides to come out of the bubble and start to eat away at your bones and your tissues. So the key is being able to break that biofilm. As soon as that biofilm is broken, the body can then kill the bacteria. So what she learned through her research was the bee venom, the melatonin in bee venom, breaks the biofilm, thus rendering the spirochete defenseless. And there's another thing that has been discovered that breaks the biofilm of the spirochete, and that's stevia. Now, it has to be the right kind of stevia. So I have a giant bag, a 2-pound bag of stevia, and I had to stop doing the bee venom therapy because there was collateral damage, which I'll go into in a minute. But stevia is an alternative. So I take 1/8 of a teaspoon of stevia every day, and it's been shown to break that biofilm that is surrounding the spirochete, and then the immune system automatically knows to kill that spirochete. So let's back up a minute, and I want to talk to you about the bee venom therapy, because bee venom therapy freaks people the hell out.
Right. Well, yeah, I don't like bees stinging.
Rightfully so. A lot of people are allergic to bees, but not only that, it sucks to get stung by a bee. However, I became a beekeeper because I needed to have a hive of bees that I could harvest. And my boyfriend became a beekeeper, and between the two of us, we had 3 hives. And we would have to literally get bees several times a week. And yes, we had to sting ourselves.
Wow.
And last summer, so for 1.5 years, I was stinging myself. The bad part about bee venom is, even though I didn't have a traditional, what would be considered a traditional allergic reaction to bees, a lot of people have an anaphylactic shock response and their throat closes up and they can't breathe, and, it'll kill them. While that wasn't the response that I had, I did have a different type of allergic response. And that is, every time I would sting myself, I would feel my stomach would be on fire. And come to find out, the bee venom was burning out my stomach lining.
Oh.
So I had to stop stinging last year. And the way that I knew for sure that I had Lyme disease was when my boyfriend discovered, he's like, I found this article about this woman who got stung and then she felt better. He goes, if I sting you with 1 bee and then you have a Herx reaction, which a Herx reaction is, that's the reaction that you have when those bacteria are killed and they release endotoxins into your body. So it's kind of like when somebody gets chemo or radiation for cancer. It's killing the cancer, and that cancer releases toxins into your body. And until you can detox and get all those toxins out of your body, you feel sick. So he stung me with 1 bee, and the next day I felt like I had the flu all day, but a really bad flu without the vomiting. My entire body hurt. It started with my head. Everything hurt. And that's how we knew for sure that we killed off some of that bacteria, because it died in my body and it made me really sick. So bee venom is one alternative therapy, but you have to be careful, because if you're allergic to bees, you can't do it, obviously, but you could have that collateral damage like I did, where my stomach lining got burned out. So bee venom is a good alternative treatment for Lyme disease, but it's not ideal for everyone. And it sucks to sting yourself. I started with 1 sting, and then a week later I did 2 stings, and then a week later I did 6 stings, and I worked my way up till I was stinging myself 20 to 25 times, 3 times a week. And my boyfriend now, he's still stinging, and he stings himself anywhere from 30 to 100 times a week. Sometimes 33 times, sometimes 25, 4 times. And the bad thing about, obviously, the bee venom is, it could have some other adverse reaction in your body. But not only that, what's tough about this type of a treatment is if you have something called the MTFHR gene, which 40 to 60% of the population could have it, and I have it, and my boyfriend does not. And the joke among us, and if I can be genuine for a minute, I'm going to swear. The MTFHR gene, we call it the motherfucker gene because it's a motherfucker. And
Wow.
what this gene does is it makes it really hard for you to detox. So I have this gene, which means when I sting or when I take stevia and I herx and I have, I just feel like I'm sick and I'm run down and I'm tired and I'm achy, it's really hard for me to detox. And so that means that I feel like that a lot of time. Whereas him, he stung 50 times last week, all in one day. He did it like it took him 30 minutes and he stung 50 times. Not even so much as a twinge of a headache. And if I had done that, I'd be in bed for a week. So, there's good and bad to these treatments. I went on a trip last week. The two of us went on a trip and I didn't take any of my supplements. I didn't take any stevia. I didn't do anything. I just was like, I need a break for 5 days. I just want to be on vacation and just kind of have somewhat normal of a life. I got back on Tuesday. On Wednesday, I took 1/8 of a teaspoon of stevia. And by the end of the day, I was herxing, meaning I had that headachy, flu-like symptoms. And ever since then, I've been taking the stevia every day and I'm herxing every day. So there are natural, inexpensive ways to combat Lyme. And the worst possible treatment for it is antibiotics, because antibiotics destroy your gut flora, and your gut flora is where you have your gut brain. And you know about this. Mm-hmm. And what's also interesting is I've been also working with an NAET practitioner. So NAET is an allergy elimination technique. And we have allergies to a lot of things in our environment. We have allergies to people. We have allergies to situations. We have allergic responses to emotions, all kinds of things. And as a result of doing this NAET work over the past 3 years with this practitioner, I've learned that I have bacterial infections, I have viruses, and I have parasitic infections that are embedded in my DNA from other incarnations.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I spoke to a medical intuitive last week, and the minute I got on the phone, he's like, you have a parasite infection. He's like, wait, do you have Lyme disease? And I was like, oh my God. And then he goes, I'm also detecting in your energy field a virus. He's like, did you have mono when you were a kid? And I'm like, yep. And so he nailed everything that I have: parasites, fungus and fungal infection, candida, the Lyme disease, the mono, the viruses. And with my NAET practitioner, several times she says, the reason that you're having a hard time clearing some of these allergic responses and these infections is because 1,000 years ago, you were a 60-year-old male in Northern Europe and you died from Epstein-Barr. And she said, so Epstein-Barr has existed. It didn't get the name Epstein-Barr until like 50 or 60 years ago, but it has been a virus that humans have contracted for thousands of years. And she says, it's embedded in your DNA from multiple incarnations. And she says, it's going to be harder for you to eliminate that virus as a result. So I've also learned that Borrelia is the bacteria that is one of the, let me think. How do I say this correctly? There are 52 strains of Borrelia, a type of bacteria, and 29 of them cause Lyme disease.
Wow.
And one of them is Borrelia tenuki, which originates in Southeast Asia, Japan, Vietnam. I've never been there. And yet when my NAET practitioner tests me, she says, 375 years ago, you were a 21-year-old male in Japan, and you got this particular strain of Borrelia tenuki. And I'm like, it just is mind-blowing. But then when you start to think about energy work, it's like, well, of course this makes sense. So my NAET practitioner said Lyme disease is a little bit easier to work with and to get rid of because it's a newer disease, whereas Epstein-Barr, all the herpes viruses, parasites, those go back a lot further in history, in time. So all that to say, you know, when you're trying to treat some of these diseases, you have to understand that energetically, you may be battling something way bigger than just this incarnation. Because
Yeah,
it's embedded in our DNA and carries forward into all of our incarnations.
that is so trippy. You know, that's
Yeah.
something that I'm aware of. I think we probably just blew a lot of people's minds just now, and that's a good thing. Because as we're, you know, approaching healing in this lifetime, if we're doing it from the limited scope of like who you are right now, who
Right.
you are being, we might never get the solution.
That's right. Exactly.
We never get there because
Right.
we wouldn't be thinking outside the box like you're thinking. Like you went,
Mhm.
okay, what is this? I'm willing to
Right.
try anything
Yep.
to resolve this situation.
And
So
for me to realize that I've never been in an Asian country, and yet my body is fighting off a strain of Borrelia from that part of the world, and I've not really been exposed to people who, in, you know, it's a bacterial infection, so it's a little bit harder to pass than, say, a virus. That made me realize, okay, this is way bigger than just this body and what's going on in this time frame. This is energetically, it's crossing many boundaries.
yeah. And so so these treatments are they going to at some point be able to take away the Lyme disease completely from your being?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
you're in the middle of the process right now.
Yes. So I'm not completely symptom free, but what the NAET modality does is it's like, okay, so we use computers every day, and if you've ever worked in a corporation, and I know you have, you and I've both shared that experience. We've worked in big companies, and when we have a problem with a piece of technology, what do? We call the IT department, right? And the IT department, the first thing they say is, did you reboot the computer?
Yeah.
That is essentially what bee venom therapy and this NAET therapy do, is they reboot your immune system. So it's kind of like you get a reset button, and the NAET teaches your body how to recognize the parasite, the virus, the fungi, the bacteria. So now, even though I stopped the bee stinging a year ago, I'm still fighting off the Lyme disease, and I'm helping it by using stevia to break open that biofilm so that my immune system goes in and knows to kill the spirochete. And the proof was just this past week when I got home from my trip, and I didn't take anything for 5 days. And then on Wednesday, I took the stevia, and by the end of the day, I was herxing. And that told me, the stevia is breaking open that biofilm, and my immune system knows that spirochete is an invader, and my immune system is strong enough to now kill it. So one of the things the medical intuitive did say is, he said, if you had not been doing all these things, the bee venom therapy, the NAET, the acupuncture, the herbal supplements for the past 3 years, he said, you probably wouldn't be able to move your arms and legs right now. He said, so it is working, and it's a long process. It's a slow process. He says, but it's working. And he says it's done a really good job of suppressing the advancement of these issues. And he says, there's probably a few things that you need to do differently and add to your protocol, your treatment protocol. And he says, you've got about 1 more year of treatment, and you should be done with all of this stuff. So
That is so great.
It can be eradicated.
You know, what my understanding is overall, like Lyme disease aside, but it's just one of these diseases that gets a hold of you, is that it's the level of toxins in our body. Like when we get the level of toxins in our body down to a point that our body can actually heal itself. So it's like finding that balance of like, I'm eliminating the toxins. And we can do that through diet. We can do that through different choices, like
absolutely
not smoking, not drinking, getting plenty of sleep, drinking plenty of water. Like, what are some of the changes that you've had to make to your lifestyle?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Like, just give us an idea. Cause I know.
Great question.
Yeah.
Great question. Because everybody has mimicked the same thing. The medical intuitive, the acupuncturist, everybody is saying it's all nutrition based. So when you feed, garbage in, garbage out, you feed your body good quality food that's nutritious and high quality, good, clean water that's free of, the chlorines and the fluorides and all the chemicals that the city and the government puts in our water. If we strip all that and really get to the really good quality food, quality water, and, get enough sunlight and enough rest every day, our bodies are pristine and can fight off almost any invader really easily. So I've had to learn, I've really changed my diet. The medical intuitive last week said, sugar is my nemesis. I've got to stay away from sugar. And sugar is one of the worst things, back in hundreds of years ago, only the wealthy elite had sugar. I mean, it was a highly prized additive in food, because people didn't have sugar. I mean, in the days of the caveman and the cave woman, the only time you had sugar was in the summer when you could grow or harvest fruit, or you could find fruit, berries,
sweet corn
or honey from beehives. That's it. The rest of the year, you didn't eat anything sweet. So sugar is a killer. It's the worst thing that is in Americans' diet. And I've gotten to the point now where I look at every single label on everything I buy. And if it has more than 15 grams of carbs in a serving, I don't buy it. I don't eat bananas. The only sugar that I really get is either berries, which are high in fiber and very low in sugar actually, or whole grain sprouted organic bread, because it's also very high in fiber. So avoid sugar. Soft.
I wish that you could have been there at the concert I was at, seeing the Pentatonics the other night. And there was a line, literally there was a line, like 50 people to get those candy, spun candy.
Oh, sugar. Cotton candy.
Cotton candy. I don't even like to say the word.
Yeah.
Cotton candy and fluorescent. What? I was like, what is that you're putting in your body? Like,
yeah, it's crazy. Chemicals.
50 people to get cotton candy.
Yep.
It's sugar.
Yep. It's just pure sugar, spun sugar with additives for color. And you're just, the color is a chemical. My gosh. So, I eat pretty much fresh food. I very rarely eat anything out of a box. And if it's frozen, it's because it's usually some sort of organic sprouted something or other. But for the most part, I eat all fresh food, and I try to eat organic as much as possible. Very little sugar and lots of fresh vegetables. I've really cut back on pork, especially because there's a lot of parasites in pork, and mostly fish, chicken, turkey, but you also have to watch out for the hormones, the antibiotics, right? Get away from the antibiotics. So a lot of fresh, clean, organic food. And, I don't eat vegetables or fruits that are high in sugar. For instance, corn is almost pure sugar. Bananas are really high in sugar, that kind of thing. So you just got to watch the sugar intake and be mindful of, the quality of the food and the drink. I went cold turkey on coffee 2 weeks ago. I've been drinking coffee for 22 years and I went cold turkey. But what I did is I substituted yerba mate instead. And the reason why is because yerba mate has a more synergistic effect. It still has a element of caffeine, but what it also does is it helps increase focus naturally in your brain. So it has theanine and some other things that are really good for focus. And I was like, well, I would rather have that than just caffeine to wake me up. I'd rather have something that has some caffeine to wake me up, but also something that's going to make me more productive and efficient throughout my day.
And there's also some coffees that have MCT oil in them, which does a similar thing.
Yep. And I use coconut oil and, real butter. Margarine is just plastic. It's liquid plastic.
If you look at the label on margarine, any margarines, any of that, you'll see words you don't know.
Yeah. Right.
And that's not good.
Right.
And then you'll see like palm oil.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Palm's really bad for you.
Bad. So,
yep. So I'm, pretty much, I don't eat dairy. The only dairy I get is butter. And if I do have dairy, it's like a quarter of a cup of ice cream. And that's about it, very small amount.
No
I'm
cheese?
almost gluten-free. So, you know, dairy free. And the reason why dairy, you know, everybody is lactose intolerant. And if you want to know how I know this, stop eating dairy for a month and then have a cup of milk, and you will be, your side will be falling, you know, you'll have sharp pains in your side and you will regret that you ate dairy. Because think about this. We don't need dairy. We are the only species on the planet that continues to consume dairy products after we've weaned. We don't need dairy. It's a marketing tactic, people. The only reason you drink dairy is because once, you know, because the cattle herders and the cattle owners were like, oh, well, we can sell the cow, but what if we can make more money by selling the milk from the cow? We don't need dairy. We can get calcium from all kinds of other foods, but we don't need dairy. And it causes undue inflammation. It causes weight gain. It's high in sugar, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't eat dairy anymore, and don't miss it. And I don't eat gluten anymore. Kind of miss that a little bit. Now, every once in a while, I'll have a piece of French bread, but very rarely. And sugar, you know, just cut out those things and you will feel so much better and you'll lose weight.
Which is what a lot of people are concerned with.
Yeah.
So, well, that's really great. I was trying to think if I had other questions. Wow.
Well, we covered a lot.
Oh, okay. I do have one. That's the other question I had. So as you were going through your investigation of the Lyme, was there also, did you also discover sort of agreements with yourself? Like, did it have more of a spiritual impact as well? Emotional, mental, spiritual?
Oh my God. Wow.
Okay.
What an amazing question. So I went to a psychic here in Austin. You may know Joe Nichols.
Yes.
Joe Nichols said to me, Wendy, you got Lyme disease because you have a lifetime of repressed anger, and this is going to help you release it.
Okay. I have to say, I know you, and I got to agree. I love you.
Yeah.
But it's so true. It's so true.
I was a rage monster, man. And, you know, it doesn't help that I wasn't taught how to communicate feelings growing up, and I didn't get that from my family. And then I married two people that also were rage monsters. So, you know, like attracts like. And I had a lot of anger. I had a lot of repressed emotion. And what the Lyme disease, actually it was the Lyme disease, not so much the Lyme, but it's the treatment, the bee venom therapy, because this woman that wrote about her experience that when I first learned about bee venom, she said it's an immune system reboot. And part of that was also the emotional release. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. I had rage pent up from other incarnations, from pre-childhood. I was fetus in the womb, and I was absorbing the rage from my family because it was not a great start to a marriage. And I absorbed a lot of the rage from my parents. So in the womb, I was a rage-filled individual. And then when I was born, you know, just it continued. And I had a lot of rage towards my parents, towards my brother, towards myself, towards, you know, my past relationships, my current relationship. I mean, you name it. I just was like full of rage. And that's literally when my NAET practitioner was treating me. She tests for the physical allergy, the physiological allergy, and the emotional allergy. And my emotion for the entire year and a half or so that we were specifically working on the Lyme disease, every week, because I'm seeing her every week still, every week it was rage, every single week. And she would treat me and I'm just like bawling and I'm just letting it out, letting it out, letting it out, letting it out. And now I've been downgraded from rage and now I just have anger.
Well, you know, I could tell the difference. And I think anybody that knows you, Wendy, can really tell the difference in you over the last couple of years through this treatment.
Yeah, thank you.
You're so much softer. You're so much just more present. You know, you're still as motivated as ever, you know, to achieve. But it has a totally different quality. At least I feel a completely different quality to it. It's like so much softer and warm.
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a big emotional component to it. And that was, you know, kind of when Joe Nichols said that, I was like, oh, what do you mean I have rage? What do you mean I got this because I have pent up emotion? And boy, let me tell you, it just came out. And, I didn't always know how to handle it, but I did my best. And my parents still love me, and, my boyfriend still loves me, and my friends are still here for me. And, I've deepened relationships with people because I've opened up and I told them, I'm like, look, this is what I went through and this is what I learned as a result. And I decided I never want to go through this again. So I need to come up with new mechanisms and new structures and new ways to release that rage, or never even to get to rage again, but just to release the anger and not hold it in. Because that's what I had done, is I wasn't taught those coping mechanisms as a kid, and I wasn't taught the right kind of communication, et cetera, et cetera. And so I just have held in a 45 years of anger, and that turned into rage. And so now I have, I've been working with a therapist. I've been working with the acupuncturist, working with the NAET practitioner, working with you. I mean, I've had you do some work with me energetically, working with the Reiki master. I mean, I have done, it's like I've done a ground up restoration, and I really did hit that reset button. And I feel like the second half of life, I'm finally going to be able to enjoy. And it's going to be on my terms.
I'm so glad you're saying this. Now, I want to also point out, because a lot of people out there, and I think you know them too, they think it's weak to ask for help, right? Like
I was one of those people.
Okay, talk to that. Talk to those people right now, because those people that are like, I'm strong and I'm not, it's weak to do all this stuff.
Yep. I was one of those people, and I was taught that by my dad, that, asking for help is a sign of weakness, until some things happened with me, with my health. And then something happened with my stepsister. And I learned that I'm going to look right into the camera. I'm going to say this with my big eyes and say, smart people ask for help. You're a smart person. Ask for help. That's all I got to say.
That is perfect. And I hope you guys receive that, because, also when you take the journey and you ask for help, I know this has been a challenging time in your life, but how fascinating has it been, Wendy? Oh
man, I've learned so much about myself and the people around me, because, when at first, a year and a half ago, when I first started the bee venom therapy, and I wasn't telling anybody, and I wasn't asking for help, and I wasn't telling anybody how sick I was, guess what? I went to the grocery store to get groceries, and just carrying the bags from the store to my car in the parking lot was so excruciatingly painful that on the drive home, I started crying, because I'm like, how am I going to get my groceries up to my second floor apartment where I have to go up a flight of stairs? I was crying because I didn't know how I was going to do it. That's how sick I was. I was in so much pain. I was so weak. And then I realized I have all kinds of neighbors around me that care about me. And I bet if I ask any one of them, they'll help me. Sure enough, I called a friend of mine, and I'm bawling. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to get my groceries up the steps. Can you please help me? And he's like, of course. Why? He was just like, why didn't you think to ask me this sooner? And then I had to reveal how sick I was. And then I started telling all my friends in the neighborhood, and they were like, Wendy, don't ever hesitate to call us and ask us. And then it reminded me something that my boyfriend said to me, because we were broke up at the time. But we got back together, and he told me, he goes, you know what? When you don't ask for help, you know what it does? He says, if I offer to help you and you don't let me help you, he goes, it takes something away from me. And he says, when your friends find out, I'm going to get emotional now.
Well, I am too, because I'm kind of mad at you.
When your friends find out that you need help and you didn't ask, it takes something away from them.
It does.
They care and they want to be there. Mm-hmm. And when I asked for help and everybody showed up for me, I cannot believe how fulfilled I felt, and how loved I felt, and how I realized that by not asking them for help, I was hurting myself. Mm-hmm. I was making my life way harder than it needed to be. And I was trying to do everything and be everything, until I finally just said, I can't be Wonder Woman anymore. I'm done. Okay. I just can't. And then sure enough, I just was swarmed with this love and help and support. And people were like, anytime, it doesn't matter what time of day it is, call and ask for help. And I started doing that. And I realized it gives them purpose. It makes them feel good to give. And it allows them to show that they care. And it makes me feel good too. So it was a win-win instead of the other way around where we feel like we have to do it all ourselves.
Yeah. And it makes them feel so close to you because they're like, wow, you know, Wendy Nolin, who's a kick-ass, amazing coach.
Right. Needs my help.
Needs my help. Oh my God.
They were all so honored. They were all so honored. And they saw me, they were like, you are human. Oh my God. It's so nice to see that you're human.
Yeah, because I got to say, like, this is so true, people, because the whole time that she was going through this, you wouldn't know it. I mean, because you would just compartmentalize it or something. And like, you would just show up and even I would be like, something doesn't feel right, but I'd ask you and be like, no, everything's good. And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm wrong, but I wasn't wrong.
No, you weren't.
You just weren't letting me in. So,
And I'll tell you, the more I started to open up, I was telling clients, I was telling people that I was networking with, I was telling strategic referral partners. And boy, you know what happened? I thought, oh, if I tell anybody, they are just going to, you know, they're not going to want to hire me because who wants to hire a sick person?
Right.
The exact opposite happened. And people, you know, they swooped in and they're like, how are you doing today? Are you okay? And my business skyrocketed because I was being genuine and I was revealing my relatability and my fallibility and my imperfectness. And I was revealing my struggles and they were like, oh, thank God she's not perfect. And
because you kind of seem perfect.
She's like, they would say like, oh, great. It's nice to know that you don't have your shit together either. So it's helped me. It's helped me because I've been able to, my clients now, my prospects, my referral partners, my strategic alignments, my networking contacts, they feel like I'm just that much more human and relatable. And now they trust me even more because they're like, wow, well, you know what? You know, and they see me as an inspiration too, because they're like, well, shit, if she can do this, then by God, I can too. And when there's the days that they don't feel like they can do it, they're like, how do you get through this? And I'm like, well, and then I go through, you know, this is how I get through it.
Yeah. Amazing.
You know, but I have a lot of support. I have a lot of people that I can call and I can either bitch to and vent and, you know, bitch and moan with discernment and with perspective. And then there's the people that, you know, once I'm done bitching and moaning, they're like, okay, what do you need from me? Well, I just needed you to listen. Or can you please come over and help me? Or can you, you know, let's go shopping together. Or I need somebody, you know, can you send your husband over to do this heavy lifting or something? Whatever. I mean, just, you name it. But asking for help is a huge part of it.
Totally. I love that. Well, this has been so inspiring and touched on all the elements I love about the healing journey.
Great.
So thank you for being that perfect storyteller that you are and sharing your experience. Oh, I love you in so many ways.
Love you too, girl.
Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed that and got inspired. Wendy Nolin, you can check her out at her website, WendyNolin, NOLIN.com. She's a badass in so many ways. And now you know even more about her.
Awesome. Thanks, Carrie. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of the week, everybody.
Yeah,
and
you
take
guys
care of yourself and ask for help. It's okay.
Absolutely. Ask for help. All right. Love you guys. I'll see you on Friday. Bye.
Bye.
Great.